The advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Granpeesheh and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod, and look who I'm here with, the fabulous Dr. Doreen
Good
Granpeesheh.
morning. Good morning, Shannon. Good morning, everyone.
It's been a minute since we've been with you.
Yes.
People may not realize, but you are a resident of Florida.
Yes.
You retired and moved to Florida.
Yes.
And, you commute to come back here to do all kinds of things. But since we last saw you, you've been through not one,
but two hurricanes. Two
How
lovely
are you doing?
hurricanes. Good, thank you. I'm doing okay, but it's very exhausting dealing with hurricanes and trying to get your house ready and safe and then dealing with the aftermath,
Yes.
which, we had water through our entire house.
I
So,
can't even imagine how
yeah.
frustrating that must be.
It's part of living in Florida, but it is a lot of cleanup and then a lot of contractors and trying to get people in at the right time and trying to get people in as soon as they can because
Right.
they're so overwhelmed. It's
Right.
just,
You've even had big tropical fish in the swimming pool.
Oh,
from
yeah,
hurricanes.
We've had to go fishing in our pool.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't even imagine. I think it was two earthquakes, hurricanes ago that you sent a picture.
Oh,
And it
that one was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Ian was horrible.
intense.
Ian destroyed our house. Yeah.
Oh,
Ian was really bad.
I can't imagine.
But thank you for asking.
But you tell me, because there are times when I go, gosh, is it even worth living there? But you tell me that the rest of the time it's so beautiful.
It is incredibly beautiful and very peaceful and just it's such a gorgeous part of nature, it's amazing. But I mean, I come back and forth and when I'm here, there's earthquakes.
Yes,
When
it's true.
I'm there's
something.
hurricanes.
It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, there's something, right?
Honestly.
I have friends in Iowa and it snows, right?
There you
and then
go.
you're iced in for months on end.
That's
so
right.
I guess we all have our trade-offs, but I'm glad you're safe.
Thank you.
And that your animals
Thank
are
you.
safe and that all is well. So anyway, we are here. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is going to start to show you some of those things on the screen. Want to remind you that Ask Dr. Doreen is its own podcast now, has its own YouTube channel, has its own podcast. You should and can subscribe and get that feed so that you never miss a new Ask Dr. Doreen. So that's the best way to do. We like it if you like and share, and we also love it when you talk to us during the live show. So Chris is showing you some of the different ways that you can do that. I want to remind you that if you're listening to us in podcasts, you get that for free. It's a free download. But that does mean that you get advertisements, and we hope that you embrace those. Many of you have written in and said you don't embrace those, that you're working out or whatever, and that it would be worthwhile for you to pay a small fee to get it without ads. We're happy to do that. You can go to glow.fm/autismlive. Now, that's the one and only thing that if you subscribe there for $5 a month, you get everything that we do at the Autism Network. So you get Autism Live, you get Ask Dr. Doreen, and you get it all with no ads. So that's a pretty good deal.
Oh, I think it's
$5
amazing.
a month, that's pretty amazing. And then it just shows up in your inbox and it's ad-free and you can work out or do whatever it is that you are. Somebody told me that they listen while they're in the shower.
No, that's
I was
nice.
like, okay, well, whatever works for you. We like it all. I do want to say that we are very close. We're less than 2 weeks away from one of the biggest charity events that we're involved with during the year, All Ghouls Gala, which benefits Autism Care Today, which is the charity that you founded. Do you want to tell people why you created Autism Care Today?
Sure. I mean, and this was many, many years ago. So I think we're 19 or 20 years ago. We founded Autism Care Today. Yeah. And it was me and another parent of a child with autism. And we decided there were just so many instances where we had come across families who needed something desperately and couldn't afford it. And so we decided to form this charity, and it's very different from all other charities in the sense that it only is for services. It is really not for research, although that's a very worthwhile thing as well.
Absolutely.
But Act Today has to do just with helping families. And so we give grants for things like iPads so that kids can communicate or even entertain themselves, for fencing, for safety equipment, for helmets, for for copays. Copays are a big one now because so many people want treatments, but they can't afford the copays. So there's a lot of stuff like that that we fund. We are, I think, past $2 million in the grants that we've given. We give $5,000 grants to families. So yeah, it's a wonderful charity. I'm very, very proud of it. And All Ghouls Gala, which is coming up on the 26th of October in Woodland Hills, California, is the fundraiser for Act Today. And so we really ask everyone to spread the word. If you are in the Woodland Hills area, of course, we would love to have you join us. The tickets, I think, are very reasonable. They're $125. It's a very, very fun event, open bar, lots and lots of amazing food and dancing and music, and just a fantastic event. And if you're not in the area, then please donate to us, because we really could use the donations. And I will say that we have one half person on payroll. The rest of us are just all volunteers. So the vast majority of this goes directly to the families.
That's right. I also want to say that this year, for the first time, the silent auction that we'll be doing will be available to the general public. We'll let you know more about that next week, because it'll be next week that it will go live. And it will only be a certain number of days. And it's a great opportunity to purchase some great stuff. And by doing that, you're helping out Autism Care Today. We want to thank all of the sponsors that we have that have donated items and donated money to make the event happen. We'll have much, much more about that for you next week, because I didn't bring in a list of the sponsors. But some absolutely amazing
And we should
sponsors.
Definitely honor the sponsors on our website too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all of that, much more information about that. But I want to show you that we have a clip that Chris Desmond has made about the event and more about Autism Care Today.
Amazing.
So Chris, are you ready to roll that? If you are, go ahead and roll that for us.
Since 2005, Autism Care Today has distributed more than $2 million in grants to families with autism. Grants for things like copays on ABA therapy, protective fencing, speech and language assistive devices like iPads, and so much more. This year, Act Today's third annual All Ghouls Gala will take place on October 26th in Woodland Hills. There will be food, drinks, celebrities, and a silent auction. Click the QR code now and get your tickets and help this amazing organization support the families who need it most.
So that there were some clips there at the end of the actual party.
Yeah.
You could see the gourmet food being cooked, but you may not realize in the picture of the celebrities that were there, it was Joe Mantegna on the end and then Ziggy Stardust. I was telling them the other day that you always come dressed in a way that is, that at that party, you walked around for at least 45 minutes, and I kept saying, "Where's Doreen? Where's
A lot
Doreen?"
of people told me last year that was the case.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that was Doreen in Dr. Granpeesheh in the Ziggy Stardust.
Right.
I didn't recognize you.
That's great.
At all. And then tell them who you were last year.
Last year I was John Lennon, and that one, like, honestly, my closest friends would be having a conversation with me and saying, "Have you seen Doreen?"
Yeah, I am her. Yeah, you're not going to tell us, I know, who
No.
you're going to be this year.
No, but it's a similar theme.
Okay. I said the other day, I sense a theme coming on. I'm saying hello to Rodney. I'm saying hi to Joannie. Joannie, I wish it was this year that you were coming. I really, really do, but I know you will get here eventually. And Rosie, I'm saying hi to you. I might have one of your questions on here, Rosie. Perhaps. So anyway, today our topic is it oppositional defiance disorder or something else, and what can help? We're opening it up right now. You guys can be writing in questions. I do have a bank of questions here that I'm going to try to get through as many of them as I can. so that Marina will still be speaking to me when this is over. But I do want to say, ask questions about anything, and we have questions that are about all kinds of things. And I also want to give the disclaimer that Dr. Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. I think the brightest in the entire field. I have things I want to say to you if we have time later. But she is a remarkable expert, but there is no expert in any field who can give individual specific advice in this format. It just wouldn't be considerate to the individual, because to either individual, because you don't have eyes on the situation. Absolutely. And the person that it's experiencing whatever they're experiencing deserves that. But I do want to say that Dr. Granpeesheh has a beautiful mind, and she donates this time to answer your questions. Please write in as specific as you can possibly be, including where in the world you are. You don't have to give us your street address, but just what's the closest major city, so that we might be able, between the two of us, to know some resources that might be available to you there. Okay, I'm going to jump in here. My 24-year-old with autism won't listen to me and my wife. Been 10 years trying to get him to listen, don't know what to do anymore, has issues with following rules of the house and does not listen to anyone. What treatments will help? And I am thinking my son is displaying signs of ODD. That's that Oppositional Defiance Disorder. Need some help with my son before he really gets out of control. When he's told not to do something, he would throw a fit and then constantly ask if he's in trouble. Right. Need help with my 24-year-old adult son.
So I thought it might be useful for our viewers if I actually run through the diagnostic criteria for ODD first, right? That's what I was pulling up on my phone. It's a disorder in the diagnostic manual that I really dislike. Yeah. And I will tell you why I dislike it in a minute. But just to be very clear, the symptoms of ODD are as follows. Oops.
Oh, I just spilled water everywhere.
No worries.
It's going to sit there. We're going to let it.
So basically, it's a pattern of angry, irritable mood, argumentative, defiant behavior, or vindictiveness lasting at least 6 months, as evidenced by at least 4 symptoms from any of the following categories and exhibited during interaction with at least one individual who's not a sibling. Okay. And what are these? So now we need 4 of these, right? So in the area of argumentative defiant behavior, often argues with authority figures, or for children and adolescents, often argues with adults. 2, often actively defies or refuses to comply with requests from authority figures or with rules. 3, often deliberately annoys others. That one is hilarious. 4, often blames others for his or her mistakes or misbehavior. Now, in the area of angry or irritable mood, we have often loses temper, is often touchy or easily annoyed. 3, is often angry and resentful. And then finally, in the area of vindictiveness, has often been spiteful or vindictive at least twice within the past 6 months. Okay. And remember, if you have 4 of these, and it's lasting for over 6 months, then you can get a diagnosis of ODD. So the reason that I dislike this diagnosis is that it actually is completely meaningless. Like, what causes someone to be upset, angry, irritable, argumentative, defiant? That, I think, is much, much more important than whether or not a person is. Like, imagine if you are in an abusive environment and you exhibit these signs. Yes. Obviously, it's not right to give you a diagnosis of ODD when you there's a very valid reason why you are defiant or argumentative. That's the core of it. I've never really believed in the diagnosis of ODD. Now, let's step back from the perspective of a parent and say, it happens that we have children who have learned over the course of time, even without us intending for them to learn this, but nevertheless, they learn to be defiant, to be oppositional, because that is the only way that they're able to get what they want.
Right.
And we don't necessarily ever think that what we're doing is contributing to that. And maybe it's not, and maybe the individual learns that from a teacher or from a peer or something like that, but clearly it is a learned behavior, right? So and it's much more prevalent in autism. Why? Because when we can communicate, we tend to be less argumentative, less defiant. And when we can't communicate, we tend to be more defiant, more argumentative. And if you think about yourselves even, right, when you're in a very heated discussion, let's say, or someone has said something that you're very sensitive about, and you have a hard time expressing yourself, you have a hard time really explaining kind of how you feel about something, you're going to be yelling, you're going to be arguing, you're going to be much more defiant, you're going to just be angry, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you are able to have a conversation where you can really find the words that truly describe how you're feeling, etc., then you're less angry, argumentative, defiant, vindictive, and so on. So this is a direct reverse relationship with our ability to communicate. And obviously in autism, a lot of our kids and adults have a hard time communicating for one reason or another, whether it's on a very severe end of the spectrum where they can't communicate at all, they can't even express their needs, to the highest level of the spectrum where they can communicate, but they have a very hard time understanding where you're coming from, being able to express themselves accurately, really understand their own emotions, their own thoughts, where they came from, be self-aware. All that stuff leads to us not being able to express our frustrations well enough, and then therefore becoming argumentative and so on. Yeah. So I think that whenever there's a situation like this individual wrote, where this young man is argumentative or defiant, you really have to ask yourself, what is the function of that? Yeah. Right? Where is it coming from? In what scenario is this individual defiant, argumentative, angry, oppositional? And is there a way that we can give this individual a different way of communicating? And really, this is, Shannon, I guess, where it goes back to like making things fair for this individual, Absolutely. Right? Because we only lash out when we feel like things are not fair. And if it was fair, and if we were able to allow this person, let's say this individual has a hard time giving up control because most of their life someone else has made decisions for them. And now they really want to make a decision and they're still not allowed to for whatever reason. Is it possible for you to give them other things that they can be in charge of, other things where they have a sense of self-esteem and ability to make a decision, ability to control? Are those things possible so that in scenarios where you have to take control, they're more willing? They consider their environment and their life to be fair. The vast majority of teens, typically developing teens who get into big arguments with their parents, it's because they're growing up and they're coming to a stage where they want to be free. They want to be in charge of their own lives, and parents still don't trust them to be in charge of their own lives. So really, I think it's always, aside from, having this diagnosis means nothing to me. It's a matter of if you're seeing a pattern of aggression and defiance and your child just generally being oppositional, unhappy, find out what's leading to it and try to make the environment more fair.
Can I throw two logs on this fire?
Absolutely.
The first one, you were reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is describing me when I have wheat. No, really, yeah. I have a wheat sensitivity. We can't even call it an allergy anymore, but I have a wheat sensitivity.
There you go.
When I get wheat by accident, my blood pressure goes up, my temperature goes up. It feels like my hackles are up.
Yep.
Right? I can say all that now as somebody who has, been on the planet for 6 decades. But even when I was in my 20s and highly verbal, I wouldn't understand what was going on.
Absolutely.
And I would be feeling
such an
angry.
Important, yes.
And it was funny. I was with somebody just a couple of weeks ago that I was saying, I can't eat that because I have wheat. And I haven't been around this person a lot, but we hung around together a lot in the 20s. And she said to me, I didn't know you had a wheat allergy. And I said, yes, you do. You were with me one of the nights when I found out because we got into an argument because I was and she went, oh my gosh, I remember that. She said, you weren't even like yourself.
Wow.
You weren't even, she said, and I remember her saying to me, who are you right now?
Yeah.
And I was just so unhappy. I was
Yeah.
coming unglued.
Yeah.
And I said, I feel out of control. I don't know what's happening. I wanted to cry. And then I discovered that it was a weed reaction.
Yeah.
So think about and I just was somebody who didn't eat a lot of wheat as a normal thing, probably because on some level I realized it was messing with my digestive system. But imagine somebody who's having that kind of a low level thing constantly. It can make you a very unhappy person.
Absolutely.
But the other thing I wanted to say is, as you know, at CARD, I'm very involved in our orientation process now.
Yes.
And one of the things that we've been asking parents when they come into the orientation is that we say to them, think of one behavior that your child, teen, or adult is engaged in, that they're doing that's really disruptive to them and to the house, that's really creating challenges. And then imagine for a moment that this person was highly verbal, like the most verbal person you know, who's able to describe exactly what they're feeling and what's going on. If you could, have a crystal ball, what do you think they would say? And it's been devastating for me because I want to cry right now. The things that parents have written in and said are things like, I'm frightened, I'm scared, I feel out of control. I need someone to hug me. I need someone to tell me it's okay. I need someone to tell me that it's going to go my way in a minute. I need to understand what's going on around me. And as a parent, it just shifts the whole conversation, because when parents go, oh my gosh, if my child could talk, they would say that. And then how would I react to that? We become so much more compassionate about making it fair.
Absolutely.
When we put ourselves in the mindset of, okay, if they could tell me what's really going on, what would that be? And then how would I react to that?
Right.
So I'm just thinking, I hear 24-year-old who probably, clearly is still living at home and has to follow the rules of the home.
Yeah.
Well, who made those rules?
But it could be so many things.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, It could be so many things. It could be the rules. It could be avoidance of pain.
Right.
Like, it could be, it's too sensory, annoying, whatever the environment is. It could be loneliness. It could be depression. It could be a million things.
Right.
And that's why it's just important to really understand what's getting this individual to that level.
Yes. Because I feel like when somebody tells me, oh, my child got a diagnosis of ODD, I honestly don't know what to say at that point, because, and what I do say is, so what did the doctor who diagnosed that suggest you do? And the answer always has been, well, they say it's just going to how it is.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
If you're not bothering to figure out what's causing it, then the hope is gone.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you recommend that this family does? They go see a better doctor?
Yeah. Well, so this is actually, I'm glad you said that, because I think that when you don't figure out what's causing it and really try to change the antecedents, the things that are causing it, what ends up happening is that society punishes it.
Yes.
That's just the way it is. So all behavior either is changed through modifications of things that occur before it, antecedents, or modifications of things that happen after it, punishments.
Yeah.
So, or reinforcers, right? So if someone is being oppositional and we don't really delve into why is this and how can I help this individual communicate better? How can I understand their needs? Why do we go to therapy? People go to therapy, just typically developing people, because they want to explore what are the things that either make them anxious or depressed or angry or so on. If we don't explore those things and actually come to like some way of managing those things, what ends up happening is the individual who's oppositional will be punished by society in a lot of different ways, whether they're kicked out of a classroom or lose their job, or worse than everything, end up in jail. There's so many ways that defiant behavior is punished in society.
Yeah.
So we don't need to look at punishment. We need to look at understanding it better, figuring out what it is that is causing this individual to this level, to get to this point. Yeah, I do recommend that you see someone else. I do recommend, I would be talking to behavior analysts who are very good at identifying the function of a behavior. I would be talking to licensed clinical psychologists who can understand a little bit more. Or I don't even really know if this individual has autism. I assume they do, but they didn't say.
Yeah.
But really, I would be talking
Oh, they do. They said with
they
autism.
said autism. Okay. So yeah, then I would really be looking at what is the cause, what is the function. And a lot of times that's where you start. Without knowing the reason for oppositional behavior, we don't know what to do with it.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. My son turns 3 in October. Happy birthday. He has autism. We started methyl B12. Do you recommend any additional supplements with these to help with mood or anger?
So I love that they're talking about that. So, methyl B12 is great for like giving some individuals, it'll help in regards to like clarity of thinking and feeling a lot more kind of awake and aware and so on and so forth. But I'm not sure that it's going to do all that much for the other reasons that we're looking at. I do think that I think you need to start looking at behavioral interventions, perhaps ABA, because there's a lot of other stuff in addition to, obviously, there are some supplements that are very, very helpful. But nevertheless, did they say how old the child
3.
is? 3, yes.
Just turning 3 this month.
Yes. And this is like the perfect age to start a comprehensive ABA program, because really that's the point at which you can learn so much and you have the capability, especially if you're like a child that's responding positively to methyl B12. Oh my gosh, like this is my favorite child, right? Because they're just a sponge and they can soak up so much information.
Yeah.
So I would really be focused on trying to get into an ABA program at this point. Absolutely. And the way that works is that all of your child's skills that are not at age level would then be kind of, think of it as a tutoring, where the child would get rehearsed or practice things that are going to improve language and social behavior and interaction and finding friends and doing well in school and taking care of their own needs and basically everything that your child needs. But I think that you really should also be looking at behavioral interventions.
Absolutely. I mean, just from the logistic point of, we talk about the terrible twos all the time, which is kids who aren't yet able to convey verbally what they want and the frustration that they go through. Right. And we just don't want your child to be stuck in that. So
exactly.
And nothing has found to be more effective, including methyl B12. Nothing has been found to be more effective in helping a child learn how to get to vocalization than ABA.
Right.
So I'm going to keep saying that because I think recently it just has come to my attention that people are not as aware of the studies around ABA as they should be.
Yeah. You and I have talked about this for like over 10 years, where we've gradually seen the sort of, I don't want to say demise, but the people are starting to forget about the power of ABA. And part of that is because nobody does the correct dosage anymore. For a 3-year-old, it's what we used to do for years and years and years and years is we would do what's an intensive, very, very comprehensive program where we would analyze every single thing that this child is falling behind on and would teach those things. And a lot of our children did unbelievably well, like just unbelievably well. And unfortunately, nowadays, people don't realize that that's a possibility. And people in general, I'm saddened by the fact that everyone thinks, oh, well, this is just the way it is. Let's do a couple of hours of ABA and we can say we did ABA.
I don't think I've seen you, and I have to be careful what I say here. But not that long ago, this summer, a dear friend who is not able to have her child get services at CARD had a meeting with her ABA provider because there were some issues and asked if I would be present. And it was on Zoom. And oh my gosh, it was so enlightening.
Wow. How interesting.
But this is a child who, when they started with this company, was 3 years old, and the prescription was 10 hours a week. And I had told mom to push, and they were told once he does a certain number of hours, we can reevaluate. So now the child is 4, And I brought it up at the meeting and said, let's talk about this 10 hours of, I would like some clarity on why are we recommending 10 hours for this child? Because mom was told that it would expand and it's not expanding. And the BCBA, who is the head of this thing, sat there and said to me, oh, well, it's 10 hours because that's what's been shown to be effective in research for children this age. And I literally just said, no, no. And then I caught myself and got a little bit more professional. And I said, can you tell me what study you're referring to? And she went, well, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. And I said, let me help you. There is no study that shows that. In fact, I can show you studies that say the exact opposite. And I said, I'm a little shocked that you as a BCBA would say that, and that you should be aware if you're going to say that research, and you should be aware. And I said, but I think you and I both know that research doesn't exist. So why are you saying that to that mom? And then, of course, it was like the meeting was no longer useful, right? But I was appalled that a BCBA, who is the head of a program somewhere, would say that to a parent. And the words, no, it came out of my mouth. I was stunned.
That's so
just
sad.
Stunned. But, we move on. But people are telling parents things that are not ethical, that aren't true, that aren't based in research.
Yep.
So I just feel the need to keep saying things. But anyway, we have other stuff to talk about. Okay, I want to talk. A friend has written in here and said that their son is Down syndrome, ADHD combined. And then they said L2, ASD, and verbal. I don't know.
Level 2.
Oh, level 2. I know you like. Listen, guys, she likes it when you give her both numbers. But works great with visuals, is rigid with routines, and is learning piano, guitar, and ukulele. He has several medical conditions. She says that there are 2 medicines that they're on, Concerta, 72 milligrams, and omega-3. Several medical conditions since he was born that require a specialist for each of them. He sees a gastroenterologist every 6 months. When he asks for mom, we allow him to call her, and he tells her how he feels and what hurts. Mom comforts him, or depending on the symptoms, she authorizes a pain medication, but the symptoms stay until mom comes home, and then they disappear 1 hour later. Mom has been taking care of him for 12 years. She went back to work 5 years ago, and he still misses her. His psychiatrist prescribed risperidone as needed, but we do not see any difference, so we stopped giving it. He says his favorite days are Saturdays and Sundays because mom doesn't work. Mondays are not his favorite day, but he does well the rest of the week that we would like to help him. They're saying that on Mondays especially, it's a change for his routine. He gets stressed out, rubs his forehead constantly. Now that he has better communication skills, the behaviors have decreased somehow, but he complains about pain. First abdominal, he always uses the bathroom, then another pain, and has trouble focusing on his academics. We lower the academic expectations, give more breaks, and give more choices. He always asks to talk to his mom, and there is pain showing in his face. So they don't quite know what to do next.
Yeah. You've actually done a lot of things that are good. And let's not forget that this individual also has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. So we have Downs, ADHD, and autism, assuming it's like middle of the, kind of spectrum at level 2. So, and the individual is on Concerta, which is a medication for ADHD. And Concerta on its own may contribute to a little bit of what I think is going on, which is anxiety.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, this is separation anxiety. It's just very clear, right? He's very connected to mom, and there's some separation anxiety going on. And the anxiety can very well lead to gastrointestinal issues, which can be perceived as pain. So I think what you have to do is deal with the anxiety. There's 2 ways to deal with the anxiety. Obviously, from a medication perspective, you can certainly add an SSRI or an SNRI medication. So serotonin, norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, or just a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. These are things like There's a lot of them. There's, Prozac, Zoloft, Lexapro. There's a million of them, and you need to talk to a psychiatrist and identify what would be appropriate for him. And these, by the way, are genetic. They kind of genetically run in the family. So if mom or anyone else has had success with an SSRI medication, then that would be the one to try with him.
Okay.
But you have to change until you find the one that calms him and reduces his anxiety a little bit. And I do recommend, I think it makes quite a big bit of difference when a child is on that medication or an individual is on that medication, because it really does take the edge off a little bit. Now, from a behavioral or cognitive perspective, I really don't know his cognitive capabilities, but you certainly should be pairing other individuals with mom, so that when mom does activities with him on Saturdays or Sundays or whatever she's doing, you should have other individuals there who are with mom and actually start to provide heavy reinforcers, so they become the conditioned reinforcer. So they become the person that he loves to be with. They are the person that's fun. They are the person that provides security or safety or food or whatever it is that's meaningful to him, so that when mom is not there, this individual has someone else that they feel good with. Yeah. So you do want to do that. And then really, there's nothing much else you could do a whole bunch of things. Like, for instance, you could teach him time. You could allow him to understand that, again, I don't know his capabilities, but it would be one of the things I find very important, Shannon, is that our kids don't understand time. So when they are told, oh, mom will be home after work, that really means nothing. They don't know if that's, 100 hours from now. How can I tolerate it until mom comes home? Or if it's right now, you know what I mean? So basically giving him a way of measuring the period of time until mom comes home. That can be done in a lot of different ways. Like if mom is at work for 8 hours, go and buy 8 stickers, and every hour give him a sticker and let him see the remaining stickers, so that he knows when these stickers are finished, mom's coming home. It could be done in so many different ways. And again, if he's capable, just teach him to read time. Yeah. Because it's so important for our kids to understand that their reinforcer is coming. It's on its way. You just have to wait. Yeah. Waiting is very easy once you know duration. Imagine if you went to work and you didn't know when work is going to be over. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we need to have an end point. So I think having an end point, having another person who is kind of associated with a positive reinforcer, and then also absolutely look at medications for sure. Those are all helpful things. But to me, this is anxiety, what he's experiencing.
Yes. But I love this idea of pairing it with somebody else, so that you start spreading out what makes mom safe with other people. Yes. I love that's very productive. Reza has written in and said, my 10-year-old autistic son says no to everything we tell him to do.
Yes, yes.
We don't mean to laugh, but we've seen these customers before, and they're precious beyond belief. Yes. It's hard for you, I know. When my son went through a phase like that, and it's like so hard. Yeah. But
yeah. I mean, I think, Reza, you should, whenever it's like little things like this, drop down to the very basic, sort of the initial constructs of behavioral therapy. And that is, if you want a behavior to go away, you don't reward it. If you want a behavior to increase, you reward it. So at this point, what you want is for your child to comply and not say no, right? So let's start with just asking very, 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 very basic demands, whatever they might be, like give me the block, give me the cup, whatever it is, something super basic with a huge reward, and make sure he understands that if he doesn't say no and he just gives you the item, he will get that amazing reward. Remember, the reward in the beginning always has to be a lot bigger than the demand. And then over time, you gradually make it the reward a little bit less and the demand can increase in difficulty. But the whole thing is to start at a point where all he has to do is a tiny response and not say no. If he says no, you just don't give him the item and you do it again and you do it again. Don't get into a discussion about saying yes or no. In fact, if you want to really simplify things, ask him, do you want this? Yeah. This huge thing. And obviously he'll say yes. Right. So there's no there. And if you are, it just starts with the basics. Kids who say no to everything, they're engaging in discussion with you. It's almost either they're trying to have a conversation or they're just frustrated with the demands. And actually saying no, honestly, is not a bad thing.
Not at all.
Like later on, we teach our kids to say no when they're overwhelmed, So I think this is one of those situations where I don't know if you have a behavior analyst. I threw a lot of stuff at you. It's about looking at the overall environment and making it a little bit more fair for him, a little bit more pleasant, and he will stop saying no.
Well, and as you said, as a parent, I think that no, while it's very disruptive when we want them to say yes to something, it's a quality problem.
Yes.
Because we all want to have children who say no.
Yes.
Because, this is where we get back to that thing about, as parents, we all will say we want our children to have independence.
Yep.
But we all want them to be safe. And these two things go like this.
They're opposites.
All the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no is an ideal thing, right? Because it
100%.
helps them to have independence and it helps them to be safe.
That's right.
We want the no. It's just we want it when they really mean no.
Right.
And sometimes for control, we will all say no to something because in the moment we want to have control of something. So I just want to say, I think we have the fear that my child, that they're going to get this ODD diagnosis, right? And then this is just what we're going to be forever. And I would just say to this parent, listen to the things that you said about giving them things that they want, making it fair, and don't worry about the no.
Yeah.
Kind of celebrate the no. My child is capable of saying no. This is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, except I think sometimes it doesn't fit in to life.
Yeah.
So let's just, one of the things you can do, and I think sometimes what happens is that our kids say no to certain things. This is where you need to pick your battles, right? So I think from the start, you need to, let's say, list out all the possible scenarios, and some you should allow the child to say no. Absolutely. And then when they say no, you should back off. Other things, you should make sure that the reward that the child is getting is higher so that they won't say no, right, because they want that reward. Mm-hmm. And then all of this stuff, remember, you practice it not when it's really happening. Like a lot of times parents will say, well, he says no to going to school. Right. And that's not something you want to battle early in the morning. Or he says no to brushing his teeth, So you got to work on each one individually. And really it's about adding reinforcers, making it a much more positive. Remember, whenever a child or an adult refuses to do something, decrease the demand, increase the reward. And that's always the case. Decrease the demand. The way you do that is you break it into little pieces, right? Sections. Increase the reward for each section. You can always modify it later, but right now you need to decrease the demand and increase the reward.
We had a couple of more ODD questions, some of which we've already addressed, but I love this one. Is ODD even a thing? Mm-hmm. My child has autism, and we have had great success with ABA. My nephew is also on the spectrum, but he has a diagnosis of ODD, and I feel like my sister-in-law uses that as an excuse to never ask him to do anything and to never hold him accountable. Yeah. It makes me a little crazy. Am I being insensitive?
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't comment on any particular child or parent, but there are many scenarios where we get a diagnosis of, let's say, autism, which is a very scary diagnosis, right? It's a big thing, and we don't really know how to deal with it. And a lot of times people will say, oh, it's lifelong, and blah, 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 and all this. And then we make that diagnosis an excuse for everything. And so I often say to parents, if you want your child to adhere to the rules of society, you have to treat them like a typical child. If you want your child to be able to do X, Y, and Z, you have to actually have the consequences for not doing X, Y, and Z. And that's absolutely true. So, and let me tell you, I can understand why we as parents really give in to our kids, right? So let's say a child has a diagnosis of autism, and when they're very, very young, they don't have a lot of speech, right? So we end up as a parent figuring out all the time what the child really wants, right? And so before the child has any opportunity to even say what they want, we predict it, because we're good mom, and we're trying to predict what the child's needs are, so we take care of them. The result of that is that the child actually never really develops language. They don't have to, because we always take care of their needs. Same thing is true for challenging behavior or ODD type behaviors. Child communicates through hitting or tantruming. I want that toy. I'm going to hit you and grab it away from you. And if as mom or dad or whoever is taking care of the child, if we believe, oh, that's just the way he is, there's no changing this, we're always going to allow that behavior, and that behavior will grow and increase and just be part of the personality of the child growing up. If we believe, no, wait a minute, my child may have a diagnosis of autism, but they're going to learn not to hit others. They're going to learn the rules of society, and they will. I promise you, they will learn not to hit others, and they will learn to use other forms of communication that are better forms of communication. I have the most severely affected adults who can't even say a single word, and they've learned that aggression is not a good way to communicate. They've learned to be patient. They've learned to use their OG device or a picture exchange system. They've learned to communicate in a societal accepted norm way of communicating. So it is about how we perceive autism and what we allow with it, you know?
Yeah. But I really relate to this mom with it. You know, it makes me, when she says it makes me a little crazy, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, I have had so many circumstances, imagine, because I'm always in places where there's a wide variety of people that are on the spectrum, and a wide variety of parents, and parents reacting to things, right? And it makes me crazy when I see somebody who is engaged in a behavior that is clearly not, you know, to the benefit of them or the people in the room around them.
Right.
And the parent goes, well, it's autism.
Yeah.
Right. And it makes me full on nuts.
Right.
Because I think it's a disservice to that human.
Right.
Right. That they haven't been taught, you know, this is how we behave in these circumstances. And I think always to this one time when we were in the grocery store and it was winter and it doesn't get that cold here, but my mom had made Jem a Harry Potter scarf. Mm-hmm. And it was long, you know, and he could wrap it around many times. We were standing in line at the grocery store and he was old enough, just old enough, that he wasn't in the cart. And there was a little boy in line in front of us who was slightly taller than him. So he must have been a little bit older, because Jem was a tall person at every age that he was at. And the little boy kept going and grabbing his scarf at the neck and trying to pull it.
Oh, wow.
Right? This is not appropriate behavior. And Jem was like not knowing how to deal with it. And I was saying to him, tell him, no, please don't touch or whatever. I was saying, stand back from him, whatever. And I was kind of looking to the mom, like, do something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she just kind of looked at me and she goes, he has autism. And I said, so does he. Can you ask him to please, or can you move him away from my child? And she was fatutzed with me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I should have let her, because her child had autism, I should let him choke my son.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, no.
Yeah.
Not on any
absolutely.
planet, not today, not next week, never. And she was unhappy with me because she thought it was the all-purpose excuse.
Right.
That, you know, he's allowed to touch other children around the neck and you know, no, I'm sorry. That's just not going to work.
Exactly.
And, you know, and it made me feel bad for that little boy because he's going to be ostracized. And if she doesn't do something about it, I was like, that little boy's going to end up going to jail because he's going to touch the wrong person's neck when he's older. So I don't think that it's her being kind to her son having that, not putting a demand on them. What world is this nephew of this mom who says this is making me crazy? What world is he going to live in later on? Because his mom is not going to live forever.
Exactly. Well, even if his mom is alive when he's older, I mean, which school is going to tolerate this? How is he going to have friends? How is he ever going to fit into a classroom setting? How is he going to go out to restaurants with his parents? How is he not going to open the door and jump out of the car? I mean, you have to have limits. You have to, in order to live in society. And this is kind of the thing that sometimes also, I react to, because it's not really about the diagnosis so much as it is the fact that we all live in one world.
Yeah.
Right? And we all kind of have to, let's say someone has a diagnosis of kleptomania, right? They have a need, they have a diagnostic mental need to steal things.
Yeah.
How many people are going to invite that person to their home? That's my point. So it's like we all need to kind of control our issues. And yes, of course, it is harder when you have a difficulty communicating, when you have autism, etc. But it is not by any means impossible.
Not
like,
at all.
as you know, sometimes I look at some of our older adults who still communicate with me, and they're some of the most amazing self-aware individuals I've ever met.
Kindest people on earth.
Kindest and self-aware and able to just analyze not only themselves, but others.
And listen, I don't think there are any two people that aren't on the spectrum that have more desire to respect the rights of people on the autism spectrum.
Right.
If we were talking about that this little boy was making a noise or cooing or doing something with his hands that wasn't actually, potentially choking the air out of my son's neck, I would have been the first person to defend his right to do that, and for everybody else to grab a whoopee and let him have whatever sensory experience he was having. But to carte blanche say, well, they have a diagnosis of autism, so they can do whatever they want, is not helpful to that individual. And that's a hill I'll die on, defending that. Because I don't think that that's good parenting. And I always say I try not to judge anybody, but the parents who just... and I know too many of them. Yeah. It's very frustrating for me. So I'm with you. It makes me a little crazy. We went once to, when Logan Shepherd was performing at a concert, we went and we couldn't wait to be there. We were so excited. And it was a pizza parlor and it was picnic tables and people were sitting there. And a mom who I have love for and her son who I have great love for came and said, could we sit at your picnic table with you? We said, yes. But we were sharing that with another family I did not know. That family ordered a pizza. The pizza arrived on their table, and this woman's son just grabbed the pizza and took the pizza. And she sat there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I know. And I was like, no. And the dad for the family said, and the mom said, he has autism. And I was mortified.
Yeah.
She made no effort. I would have died of humiliation.
Yeah.
I would have said to that individual, that is not okay. But I also would have paid for a new pizza.
Sure.
Nothing.
Sure.
I had to do that because I was so mortified. And the dad said to me, don't worry about it. It's clear that he has other issues. But she did nothing.
Yeah.
She did nothing. And I said to her, I said, I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And that was not well.
It's funny. It's interesting, Shannon. A long time ago, I kind of looked at the whole concept of ABA and application to what we do and don't do as parents. And if you think about it, sometimes with parents, they don't want to deal with the aftermath of actually telling their own child no. Because if you were at that point, let's say you were to take the pizza out of that young man's hands and say, absolutely not, that individual could have had a total tantrum, could have been aggressive, could have thrown things, etc. And the parent, it has been punished over time to with that type of thing where they're avoiding that response.
See, you're going to make me feel compassionate towards this parent that I was.
No, not at all. It's not about. It's not about. I mean, we all
but it is compassion. Yeah. What you're saying is true, and I wasn't thinking about
society
what she had been through
teaches us,
before.
right? Of course, all of us, right? I mean, it's like I remember, like, there's so many instances where, like, if you've been hit by someone,
Yeah.
you're much less likely to go and provoke that again.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a lot of times with parents, when they don't do anything, they have been conditioned, they have been taught
Yeah.
that if you do something to protect others, you yourself may be harmed.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
now I'm going to have to be compassionate to this person. See, this is Dr. Granpeesheh making me a better person. I said if we would have time, and we have a minute here, I just want to say to you, and I'm going to get choked up about this, but I was at the Ralph's down the street from here.
Yeah.
And I was in line, and, a lot of people are having a lot of conversations right now because there's a lot going on in the world.
Right.
So the gentleman who was in line in front of me was complaining to the checkout person about how groceries are so expensive and
Yeah.
and he said, he said, I thought I was going to be in a better place in my life right now than I am. It was very, like, at the checkout.
Oh.
And he turned to me and he said, what about you? Are you where you thought you were going to be?
Oh, wow.
And I had this moment and it was just this thing that washed over me. And I said, no, I'm not where I thought I would be. I'm so much better than where I thought I would be.
Wow, that's awesome.
And he said, really? And he said, and what do you attribute that to? And I said, well, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that something happened in my life that changed us. And then we met somebody incredible.
Oh.
And as a result, my life is so much better than
Sharon.
I ever thought it would be.
Oh my gosh, you
And
make
that's
me
you.
cry now.
And that
Thank
is you. But I've been carrying this around for a week and going, I just don't know that I say that to you enough.
Thank you so
And
much.
it's not just my child who is amazing. Like that would have been enough. But also I get to come to work every day and my whole mission at work is who can I help?
Right. It's
like
amazing.
how lucky am I? And
Believe
that's
me.
because of you.
Believe me, thank you. First of all,
It's
thank you.
huge.
But believe me, I feel the same way. I feel
Wow.
very, very grateful to have you in my life as a friend, as a colleague, to see all the amazing things that you do for the whole world. So thank you.
Well,
and
it's-
I'm so happy that I could have made a difference in your life.
Oh my
honestly.
gosh.
Thank
Made
you.
such a difference in my life. And,
Thank you.
given me information
Thank
that I
you.
can go places with and get to sit with you here and do that. It's such a
Thank you.
privilege.
Thank you.
And thank you for
That's-
all that you have done
Thank
in
you.
my life. I try to live up to what you have
Oh,
made possible
you're
for us.
amazing.
But it is amazing, and I am
Thank you.
exceedingly grateful. So I wanted you to know that. We're saying hello to Helen, and Rosie said thank you for your response to one of the questions, and she said, we love you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I had not
Rosie.
written the one part that, because I didn't identify her, but she said, where is it? Since we are Autism Live fans, our journey has gotten much easier for all that we have learned.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Isn't that
to
amazing?
hear. I love that.
Absolutely amazing. But hello, Helen. We're so thrilled that you're here. We just got a minute and a half, and I just want to remind everybody that the All Ghouls Gala,
Yes.
if you can purchase a ticket, if you cannot purchase a ticket, we would love it if you would donate. But if you aren't able to donate, and sometimes you may not be able to do that, the ask is please share the information about it, especially because we're going to do the online auction starting next week. We really would love it if maybe you don't have the money to bid on some of the things, although there's everything under the sun at every price
Amazing.
point, right? Gift cards to all these amazing opportunities. So we hope that you'll take a look, and maybe there's something you were already thinking about buying that we have on the auction that you can bid. But even if you can't do that, please share it. Because every time, and I said this to somebody yesterday, every time somebody gives a donation, that means that there's another iPad in somebody's
Absolutely.
hands, or there's another fence built that saves a life. This is
Yes.
like, you really want to make a difference.
Honestly,
This is the
honestly,
way to make a
Sharon.
difference. I love Autism Care Today because of that.
Absolutely.
Every time a grant is given, it is life changing for
That's
that
right.
family.
That's right.
So-
And we go out to dinner and we spend the cost of a ticket.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I've talked to all these young people. It's $125 to come to this thing, and it's an open bar and food and a dance floor and a DJ.
yeah,
If you went to the clubs, you would spend that.
absolutely.
Now, I don't go to clubs, but I will tell you too. If
I'll
you're,
pay money not to go
Right,
to the
exactly. But I have a couple of volunteer spots. If somebody is very much like, I really want to come and I really don't have the ticket price, reach out to me directly because I have a couple of volunteer spots. And if you come and volunteer, we will get you into the party.
Great.
You'll volunteer for part of the party and you'll get to have fun the rest of the party. There's my email, shannon@autism-live.com. Because I do need a couple of good volunteers. So
Perfect.
There we go. We're totally out of time, but I just
Thank you
appreciate
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you, Shannon. It's so great to be back, and
Yeah, it's pedal to
moving
the
on.
metal to the end of the year. We got a lot of exciting things coming up because Toy Guide. I'm hard at work on the Toy Guide too. Oh, you can't even imagine. You can't. Anyway, it's not two hurricanes. It's not two hurricanes. I don't want to make it sound like it's two hurricanes. It's not. But thank you guys all for being here. We're back tomorrow with a parent to parent. And then we got Dave Humphreys is coming up, I think on Monday. That will be really exciting. You guys will talk about P2I. So much great stuff coming up. So until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to